Hi, I'm Professor Stephanie, and let's take a look at this image that you're gonna do as a practice, getting started. And I want to start with supplies first. I have already made the chart of what I'm going to use color-wise, hue-wise, and there are a few new different hues than what you have in your that I recommended. I'm working with some of the recommended, but I'm also introducing you to some other ones, and you can see I have them circled here if you want to pause and take a look at what they are. Those of you that are collecting as you go, this would be helpful for you to know the kinds of markers that are used in terms of color. I also pulled out a couple colored pencils. I think when I look at those of you that with your choices, you might not be happy with what you have. Pencil on top of marker often gives you another option for a hue and or to lighten an area. So I'm going to play with that also. Don't forget, when you cut your paper, you get a strip, sorry. This is a 1" by 9" strip. This is a great place to practice if you want to. Sometimes I'll put a scrap right next to what I'm working on, and then I play around a little bit with the color before I put it on there. So that's another cue for being able to get what you need in reference to your color. I'm going to start with the plant first, and I'm not going to complete it like this is shown here. I'm just going to show you how I would do the leaves, a couple of options for you, and then we'll move to the basket, which is the same color combination as the table. I very much like to repeat hues throughout. We'll play a little bit with the floor, which actually has a peach in it. You could also put a blue in it. And then for me, I look for a place to combine all the colors. You can see this is an abstract painting up here. But paintings, fabrics, they give you a chance to take a lot of the hues you've used and put them together. And that's a huge unity factor in this. We're not just adding color. We're not going to have 6 different hues along the way here and go, oh, that looks so pretty, because it might look pretty, but we are trying to give the impression of a room, a space that you would walk in and say, ooh, I'd like to be there. All right, so with the plant, the leaves, we are basically going to do what you're going to hear a lot of: light, medium, and dark, okay? The lighter value is going to be on the outside, the darker value is on the inside. One of the things that's nice about working with plants is that it makes sense. And so this darker could be considered a shadow. And so here's my light, medium, and dark right off the bat, okay? So I've created, if you can see that right away, some value, which is a good rendering aspect of creating a successful. So this was pretty much, sometimes I'll start with the dark, I'll move light in here, and then I'll take the medium. If you move fairly quickly, sometimes you can actually blend them. I like to try to do that if I can. So instead of watching as I'm going how things are happening, and pretty much this can happen just 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much more time on that, except that in your color combination, you may say, you know what, I just don't have a good light green. Again, the 03 I'm working with is not one of the ones that's in that packet. And here's a chance to come back. This is actually a cream pencil, and you might be able to push back, which is not really happening very well right here because this is fairly light. You might be able to take that medium tone and add a yellow, which is a different hue, but it's also right next, green and yellow are next to each other on the, well, yellow, green, and yellow are next to each other on the color wheel. And so that's another thing to think about. We're staying in this analogous. Now, when you add pencil, think also in terms of some texture. Can you work with line? We're always trying to add texture. Is it a dash? You know, how can you make this, everything you put onto this in a rendering setting, interesting? All right, that's what you're thinking in the back of your mind. How can I give this interest? So we've got dark, medium, light, and then we've got our pencil if we need to, and that might also help as you work with that. Okay, the basket is going to be a bright, here's my bright highlight, here's a medium, I've called that a highlight. It's just going to be a red. I wanted to add sort of a clay red. This is my goal. I'm thinking of the lamp as giving the light, so I'm going to give this some light. Actually, we'll try to put a shadow over here. The line drawing already has texture in it, and that's working for you really well, giving you, again, interest, and that's what we're working toward. How interesting can we make this? And I've got my, let me see where my 27 is. Here it is. Okay. So I'm going to start with, again, I try to work with my lighter and this, and we're going from left to right. I'm going to push this color, this into that medium area. Going to come back, it's a little bit of a fun thing happening here. Now, I didn't pull any pencils for this part, but again, if you want to work a little bit with some pencil, and then here comes the brown. I'm overlapping. I usually cover. I don't leave white. You may want to play around with white. If you leave white, you have to, I think you really need to continue adding white throughout. Now, one thing to remember is we can get darker, we can't get lighter. So you notice how cautious I am, not to get too dark too quickly. All right, so that happened pretty easily. I'm actually going to see if I can come back with some of this yellow instead of the white. I'm just playing around a little bit. I'm not sure how successful that is. Okay, so that worked out pretty easily, pretty quickly. The main thing here is the darker highlight. I have a red in there, brown, medium, and then light on the side there. And we can do the same thing for what's happening here. We'd have some light on the table. That's my highlight. Here comes the medium. I'm working my marker in the direction that I have, that you already have this direction. And I'm gonna just add a tad of red through here, not a whole lot. It's gonna have a little less red and a little more of this brown. So I'm working in the direction that the line, the drawing on the line has provided. So the marker stroke is in the same direction as either like this side of the table, or I've got some, so it's a little tricky to get this lighter. The darker would be in here. Great, and again, those of you using pencil, if you wanted to come back and add a little, we're just suggesting that there might be some light there, and I haven't really done a terrific job with that. I do want to notice I would go back and get rid of my white spots. Great, okay, terrific. So these two work together. I think oftentimes when you're designing and adding accessories, you've got some things that kind of are what I call sisters that you want to work together. All right, now what's interesting in here is I'm looking for your flooring to also have three hues, three values, not so much value as interest. I have an E11 here that I'm going to add into first. This is going to be my kind of surprise. Wood, oftentimes, it's not just brown. We've looked at wood before in reference to the different hues that can be in there that really make it interesting. So I'm going to work with a peach. You could also work with blue, by the way, a light blue if you have it, and then more of a yellow-green, and a really a kind of a camel, which is in the yellow family. This is the interesting thing that we're learning, is that where the hue, the base hue is, can be very significant. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and add, and again, look what I'm doing right away. I'm working with the texture, the grain of the wood that's already in your image. Okay, so you got that already. This is going to be kind of dark back there, so I'm not even going to put that highlight in there. And then I'm going to come back with, and those of you that I actually undid both of these, but I'm going to actually work with my chunky wedge. That may not be the correct word. This time I am going to move back into here because this value will be part of that story. Kind of random here. You know, wood does. Here's this V shape that I want to emphasize. I want the color, the hue that I'm adding to. And again, now I'm starting this idea of, this is going to be my light. I'm going to think a little bit of this idea of light, shadow. We're going to play with this a little bit. So if the light comes down and hits down here, I'm going to make a little bit of an oval shape right there. And you notice I put my pencil right on there because that's going to remind me. Otherwise, I will totally forget. And I'm going to add a layer right away. This is the I don't want to forget it layer. Those of you that have some, a fine art background, this will make a lot of sense to you. You might even be able to be more successful than I am. And there's no problem with that. I have got to turn that off. My apologies for that. Okay. All right, so where the wood planks come together would be a little darker, so you can play with that a little bit. All right, so you can see that I'm moving back and forth, adding as I go. Sometimes now what you have to be very careful about, notice I've got all this marker stopping right here. That you want to pay attention to. You want your color to go, I'm going back to the lighter. It needs to start right there. We don't want blank corners. We don't want it to look like that we have, and as a matter of fact, I might be able to go back to this idea of, this might be an easier way to do that. Notice those of you that are working with the Copic, got both the brush. Great. So the little peachy in there is kind of fun, or it could be a light blue. That's something, again, that as you continue to render, you're going to really have some fun adding a flavor that's kind of there, but not really there, or sort of there, is part of the fun of rendering, and that's where you get to be an artist. And that's the really cool, fun part of getting this. Okay, so I've got a shadow there that's working out, so that light is coming from there. Great. All right, I'm going to cap these, and I think I'm going to pause, and I will we'll have a second video for part 2. So thank you.